Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
You know who my partner in possible is right now, and that is that man right there if you're watching us on YouTube. I'm BJ Kissel. That is Craig Stout, and welcome to 10 Things, presented by our friends at Mission Taco Joint. They've got several locations around Kansas City, so when you're feeling tacos, call Mission Taco Joint. Good food, but even better people. We have partnered with them not only for the title sponsor of this show, which you'll hear us talking about throughout the season, but also our Feed It Forward program, which is our program along with the KCSN Foundation that we serve meals at Hope Faith Ministries Homeless Shelter in downtown Kansas City. Did it last year at Mission Taco Joint. We're doing it again this year. From the start of this program more than 2 years ago, we have served more than 5,000 meals with the Feed It Forward program, and that's continuing again this season because of our friends over at Mission Taco Joint with doing the best things that we do, Mr. Craig Stout, over with the foundation. But I'm very happy to see you. Not going to lie.
Yes, and I'm very happy to be sponsored by Mission Taco Joint. I have been there in person to see the impacts that they have brought to the community. It is wonderful to have a partner as committed to helping people as we are. You know, that's part of what we do here. That's part of the foundation. That's part of why we started KCSN, was to be able to talk football, not just, you know, you and I sitting around talking football. We get to do that whether or not we're doing this on KCSN, but also to get to help people. I am very, very, very happy to be doing this with you, buddy. It's been a little while.
I know. It's been a minute since it was just you and I, and I think for the people that like the OGs for KCSN will understand that KCSN would not be a thing if it wasn't for Mr. Craig Stout answering the phone one night about 1:30 in the morning in Alabama saying, hey, I got this idea. I'm sitting with Matt Miller at this bar at the Senior Bowl. I got this idea. What are you guys doing? And you guys have been drinking for like 6 hours is what it seemed like when you got there.
Yeah.
But,
it's been a little while. Yeah.
3.5 years later, what do we get to do? You and I get to do the same thing that we've been doing for 16 years, sitting here talking about the Chiefs. I don't think people knew that. The 6 years I was working at the Chiefs, you know, I called almost every day on my way home from work because he happened to be driving home around the same time.
Yep.
That man I'm talking to right there. Been talking with Chiefs since Kalo Phoenix was around back in the old AP days. But
we have talked a lot of Chiefs football, So you and I know exactly the wavelength that you are on when we get to these moments where we should be very appreciative of what we have right now.
Yeah.
Because you and I came from some of those origins and came from that stuff. I know that you used to go to Arrowhead all the time with your dad. Like, that was a big, big part of your childhood. I used to go to Arrowhead as well, but it was those early years of writing with you at AP that kind of forged us in Chiefs fandom. Like, and I know a lot of people that are listening right now felt the same way. It's just, you know, you sit back, you look at everything that's happening right now, you look at a behind the back pass in the preseason, and you're just like, man, can you imagine, like, again, 15, 20 years ago, can you imagine sitting around and being like, best player in the world is going to do something that nobody's ever done in a football game before, and it's going to be in preseason, and we're all just going to look at it and be like, wow, that's incredible, and move on. Like, it shouldn't be that normalized, and yet it is.
I talked about this, and we're going to get into the 10 things and 10 takeaways that we had from yesterday's preseason game, but you said it right there. The first one is Mahomes throwing behind the back, and I go back to, if you've watched the quarterback series on Netflix, my biggest takeaway from that series was seeing Marcus Mariota, and he was with the new teams. Like, it kind of made sense, trying to learn the offense and spit the play calls out. And then Kirk Cousins, again, going over the language, practicing spitting out the play calls. And then it goes to Patrick Mahomes, and he's literally talking like 4D chess of like, how do we react to the way that we know they're going to react based on their rules, because we know their defense as well as they do. So this is their rule. This is what they're going to do in this situation. This is how we're going to counteract it. And now we've got him reinventing the way of playing the quarterback position, because honest to God, like, Craig, when you see it, some people just think he's showing off with the behind the back pass and all of that. We know better. Like, most Chiefs fans know better. I know better just from being around a little bit that the way he explained it after the game, and I'm going to bring up his quote and Andy Reid talking about this play after the game, because there's a very real strategic reason why throwing the ball like that will actually lead that play to finding success. He cannot turn and throw it back the other way, or it's going to get picked off. There's only so many ways that he can get the ball at that angle, the way where he needs to go with the ball, and throwing it behind the back is actually technique-wise. We'll see what PFF grades a play like that.
Turnover-worthy play, clearly. Turnover-worthy play. We'll grade that.
He's reinventing the way that it's played. So let's hear from Andy Reid. Here's Andy Reid after the game last night talking about Patrick Mahomes behind the back pass.
Yeah, I'm glad he completed it. Yeah, that was a good thing.
He said he's supposed to have to complete it if he ever does it.
Yeah, I know. I heard he blamed it on Kelsey, but that's all right. He does it in practice every day, so I'm all right as long as it's completion. Listen, they do it in basketball every game, so several times in every game. So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Behind the back.
Film research through the years, have you seen it done in a game?
I don't think I have, but I see it every day in practice.
First ballot Hall of Fame coach. That is a kid in a candy store. He talked with Vi. He's known Vi for 20 years, going back to when he covered the University of Missouri. There's a long history there with those two guys talking. You can just tell the way that Andy Reid is responding that he absolutely loves the attention. He loves that he's got a quarterback that can do it and do it not as a trying to show off, but again, there's a strategic reason why he's doing it.
Right. Yeah, you see Andy purposely trying to keep a stone face, and he can't, because he is that kid in a candy store, because he's sitting there just going, man, can you believe this? He's absolutely right. It screams basketball, spacing concepts, defenders, everything like that. It's about being in the throwing lane. And when you try and condense the field down, again, I'll let the argument of whether or not it was actually a wrong route by Kelsey. We can choose to believe that. I don't, but
I don't believe it either. No chance.
That's fine. But let's say it was the shovel pass that we've seen time and time again. Teams have started to key off of that. That's not as open as it used to be. Throwing that little underhand shovel to Kelsey, motioning back across the face of the quarterback. And so people are getting in the throwing lanes. They're being in spots to try and stop that. Just like in basketball, you're trying to have an entry pass down to the low block. What's the easiest way of maybe creating that space? Sometimes you have to change your arm angle. Sometimes you have to change the way that you get the ball there. And we've seen Mahomes do that in traditional throwing motions so often. Of course, why wouldn't he try to do something like that? Why wouldn't he try and find another avenue to doing that? And now if you're a defender and you are closing down on Mahomes, say you're 3-4 yards in front of him, what's the angle you're taking to him now? I mean, because he can go to, take that arm very wide to the outside, throw it around you. If you close down trying to take away the wide angle, now he can throw it behind his back and still complete the pass. It's insanity. It makes it so difficult. We have seen so many defenders over the years, after Mahomes does something, they just kind of sit there for a second, and just the look on their face is just, what else do I have to do? I don't understand. It's not fair. And that's what this was.
Shout out Seth Kaiser. I think he's the one a few years ago that did the reactions to the DBs after Mahomes play. Where just a highlight of DBs just throwing their hands up and just being like, are you
hands
freaking
on
kidding
their
me?
heads, just confused. Yeah, that's what it is.
But I am not going to say that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are lying to Chiefs fans. I'm not going to say that.
Okay. That's
But
fair.
I'm not going to say that Kelce went to the line of scrimmage without knowing the play and was just kind of in his route, just figuring out as he goes. Because then the explanation of he's supposed to run into the flat, but you watch the play, you see Rashee Rice takes 2 steps and turns around. They're going to run right into each other. The spacing's not going to make sense.
No.
All I imagine is that they're laughing, knowing that teams are going to have to study that play, and they're going to have to figure it out, and then they're going to have to talk about the fact that they said they ran the wrong thing. They're going to waste even more precious time of practice where you could just tell them giggling of just being like, we're going to confuse him a little bit more. We're just going to be like, you know what, he's supposed to do this corner route thing, and defensive coaches like, that doesn't even make sense.
Especially since you watch Kelce motions across the formation, the defensive end kicks out. The safety comes down in the box with outside leverage. Okay, you're supposed to run an out route. That's going to be very difficult for you to do with those two guys in the way and all of that. This is an RPO. It's very clearly an RPO. So Mahomes at the mesh point is staring at Travis Kelce chipping this defensive end. If it's supposed to be an out route, the easiest way to kind of take care of that, Travis isn't on the same page, you hand the ball off to Carson Steele, who has a favorable look in the box. They didn't. And it's a very quick rollout come on. If you look at the way that everybody reacted and the way that everybody blocked and the way that everybody moved, yes, it was illegal man downfield. It's preseason. Don't worry about it. But it's clearly a called play in my book. It's clearly a called play and not supposed to be an out route. I don't know what motivation they have other than they just wanted to put it on defensive coordinators' plates for the rest of the year. But I love that they both just kind of went, we screwed up, and that just magically happened.
I love Matt McMullen's interviewing him, and he's just like, I didn't really understand. He talks funny, and he's mumbled something else, went to the line of scrimmage. There's no way that no one actually believes that you went to the line of scrimmage not knowing the play call. Absolutely. And then he was in motion, and he was telling him what to do. I didn't believe any of that stuff.
He's been the starter for 7 years, Travis. 7 years. Come on, man. I get that you get to freelance a little bit, but let's not pretend like you just went, I'll figure it out later. That's not how this works. No, it's not. But we do have Patrick Mahomes talking about the play. So here's Patrick Mahomes after the game talking about the behind the back pass.
Not necessarily. I think it's just naturally got to happen. If you look at that play, I'm not going to say it's the only way you can make that throw, but it was kind of it would have been hard for me to kind of turn and throw it back across above the two guys chasing me, I think. So we'll see when we get on film, but it's not something that I'm going to try to major in. It might be something that just kind of happens every once in a while.
This is our life. This is our life, Chiefs fans.
I know,
we get
right?
to have the quarterback defending how often he's going to throw behind the back passes during games.
What's next? What is next? That's the question, because this was next, right? We've been talking about this for a couple of seasons. What's the next thing? Because I never would have said, he's going to try this behind the back pass in a game. As a matter of fact, I have, on this very network have said multiple times, ain't happening. No, can't happen. It's too risky. Ain't happening. He makes it look effortless. What's next? Through the legs? You can throw it off of a defender's back and, somebody, it's like a hook and ladder off of a defender. What is it going to be? I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to number 2. We spent enough time on number 1, and we haven't even talked about the fact that Chiefs are 0-2. Patrick Mahomes has not thrown a touchdown in the preseason. So the haters will say that we're being homers by talking about all the good things and not the negative things that we've seen from the offense. But we're going to stick to some of the positive things. And I want to get your thoughts in watching preseason. Talked a little bit about this on the last show that we did on my own. And then just the way that I watch the preseason, I don't really care about the result on type and specific things. I'm watching for storylines to kind of manifest, things that we've been following, seeing how young players progress, how guys are utilized, especially offensively in this offense. And the types of plays that they're running, which is why I want to bring up the second one, which is my biggest takeaway, was they made a concerted effort to get Xavier Worthy involved in this game and not just throwing the corner route to him, not just doing that. And he even said that was more of an alert for Carson Wentz on the touchdown than it was a design play, but he knew where to be. You see the stuff around the line of scrimmage, the bubble screens, the rub routes against what was supposed to be man coverage, a couple nice plays by the Lions defensively, especially on the one. The linebacker stepped out. It was a really nice play from them. But the way in which they utilized Xavier Worthy, I think is obviously great for Xavier Worthy. It's great for fans who understand the intermediate routes, the stuff around the line of scrimmage, the deep stuff. They're using them in a lot of different ways, in a way that they kind of use McCole Hardman and Cadarius Tony with those package plays. They start putting Xavier Worthy, and all of a sudden he has that speed to run some of those plays. It's not a great sign for Kadarius Toney. We'll get to that in a minute, Craig. But your thoughts on Xavier Worthy going into this game? It all connects for me, but I was really excited to see that he could handle all the different ways that they had him getting his hands on the ball.
Absolutely. It was always, we knew he had speed. We knew that they were going to try and keep a safety deep. We knew that this was going to change the offense measurably. But the way that they've used him, this is the Tyreek Hill package. It is. They're not shying away from anything at this point. And, I kept maintaining, as everybody was just, he's too slight. He's not going to stand up to press coverage. He's not going to be able to take these hits. Neither was Tyreek Hill. And he was a much bigger frame. But was a guy that they did a good job putting in motion, getting him into, stacks and elements to get him free releases, getting him the ball behind the line of scrimmage and allowing him to build up some speed and get running. He's not afraid of contact, but they do such a good job of getting him into space. It was excellent to see that this isn't just going to be a guy that is going to be go routes, posts, quick crossers, things like that. It's going to be the full complement. This is a wide receiver 1 route tree under Andy Reid. That's what we saw in preseason week 2 here. And it's incredible to watch that, so much so that when the defense started kind of shadowing and shading over the top of Xavier Worthy and limiting some of the things that he could do when they were really trying to force feed him the ball, guess who was wide open? Rashee Rice. Exactly like we've talked about all, they threw the ball to Rashee Rice, I believe, 4 times in a row, 4 consecutive pass plays. There were some run plays in between there, but 4 consecutive pass plays. And then all of a sudden you see on the Xavier Worthy touchdown, now you've got a safety that is paying a lot more attention to Rashee Rice than he needs to be on that mesh, on that crosser. And now all of a sudden, Xavier Worthy sees the safety, trigger downhill, has that little stutter step, and just has all the speed in the world. And it's an easy touchdown. It shows the football IQ. It shows that it's not just speed. We kept hearing, this guy's John Ross. Oh, look at John Ross. John Ross was fast. He didn't work out in the NFL. It's so much more than that. He runs a full route tree. He's got the IQ. He understands the spacing and where to be and all of this. And Andy has not taken anything off of his plate. And so to see that kind of formulate in a game plan where they were damned if you do, damned if you don't. Okay, stay deep, cover Xavier Worthy. Now Rashee Rice is open. Okay, now we're going to try and take away Rashee Rice. Now Xavier Worthy's open. That was even without, a concentrated effort for Travis Kelce and without a Hollywood Brown. This offense gets really electric, and we got to see if Hollywood Brown has to miss some time, if they need to rely on a receiver a little bit more, not named Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy is more than up to the challenge so far.
Yeah, I like this comment. We appreciate everybody who's hanging out with us live. I like this comment right here from KL368. We get to dictate how a defense plays again. Celebration. And that was, again, talking about Xavier Worthy, get excited. Obviously, Hollywood Brown, want him to come back healthy. But seeing Rashee Rice look like a veteran out there with the way, and talk about spacing, a couple of those little zones that he sat in. We're talking about very small windows where they get him the ball and then Xavier Worthy to do what he's doing without Hollywood Brown playing in this game. We were bullish on the Chiefs offense before this, getting Patrick Mahomes weapons. This is a significantly deeper and more talented group than they had last year. And we saw what they did last year. Pretty exciting time. And here is Patrick Mahomes after the game talking about his rookie first-round pick and Xavier Worthy.
It was super important. Obviously you saw that we were kind of majoring in that early, trying to get him some routes where he can go out there and win, and then getting Rashee involved a little bit. You got to find that right balance because you want to not put him in too much harm's way, but you want him to go out there and get some confidence going. And so I was glad to get both those guys going early. Obviously you want to score touchdowns. I thought we did good drives, kind of stalled out there in the red zone. But hopefully when you game plan a little bit, you can get those ones into the end zone. And it was good to see Carson hit him on that route. And that route wasn't necessarily called for Xavier. It was just kind of an alert and versus that coverage, and it worked out perfectly.
Again, he's where he's supposed to be as a rookie in those kinds of situations. That's all the trust that you need. Be where you're supposed to be on time.
I wonder if this is going to change a good season out of Xavier Worthy here. Now all of a sudden kind of puts on its head the whole Andy Reid doesn't trust rookie wide receivers. Now we're going to have back-to-back years where a rookie wide receiver could potentially be a major contributing factor to the offense. Again, Hollywood Brown is going to eat into this. Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice. Again, I'm not expecting 900 yards out of Xavier Worthy or anything like that at this season, but a major factor in the offense and what he can do, I think that's very, very attainable. We're going to have to kind of reconfigure the way that we've thought about Andy Reid with rookie wide receivers and how often he gets them integrated, because right now it looks like that he's going to do it yet again here. And I don't know. I'm just very excited because, again, like KL368 said here, you dictate what the defense does. And that, coming from the defensive side of the ball, if I'm a defensive coordinator and I have to look at all the different levels and all the blades of grass that I have to cover with this offense now, I'm terrified. Like, I don't want any part of that. No, thank you. So, yeah, I can imagine the rest of the NFL is thinking the same thing.
All right, let's move on to number 3 here, and we'll pick up the pace a little bit. Obviously, we're going to spend a little time with Patrick Mahomes, but this next one we might spend a little time on because I very rarely will pat myself on the back. I'm not going to say I knew this guy was going to be a great player. I did say that this guy was going to be a fan favorite during the preseason. As soon as he was signed, I posted the highlight video on YouTube right after the draft. I was like, Carson Steele, people are going to love him because I saw the way that he ran. Long-haired white dude running dudes over that was going to get a lot of opportunities carrying the football. They were going to love him in Chiefs. Like, you get that physicality. The Chiefs fans were absolutely going to love him. And Craig, it's one thing to have a lot of fun plays and be like, oh, he killed it in the second half. Carson Steele made all these plays. He's got to make the team. It's a whole different deal when he's out there with Patrick Mahomes and the first team offense in the first, I think it was the second drive, but in the game with Patrick Mahomes, that is not nothing. He was in before Deneric Prince. Carson Steele is going to make this football team, and I love to see it because he fits something that they needed, and he is absolutely going to be the guy that makes 3 key plays at some point during the regular season that helps you win a football game, and that's all you need from that position.
It is. It absolutely is. When we were at the East-West Shrine game, in January, we sat down with Carson Steele. I'd done a little watching beforehand. I liked what I saw at Ball State, UCLA. I liked what I saw, but it wasn't a superstar level player. It wasn't like when we were watching the Shrine game with Isaiah Pacheco and we were like, who is that guy? That guy deserves to play on Sundays. Like, you see that sometimes in practice. I didn't get that necessarily from Carson Steele. It was when he sat down and talked to us. You go watch that interview. It's on the KC Sports Network YouTube page. We got it up right now. Carson Steele, when he talked about it, it was a want to. It was a desire. It doesn't matter what it is. Some of these guys that we talk to, it's, very self-focused. That's fine. I'm not judging somebody like that. But I knew right at that very moment, it was like, he's going to land on a roster and he's going to stick because he's going to do all the little things. Now, I may have to start on a practice squad, but he's going to eventually be on the active roster. Never mind, he's going to be on the active roster for this Chiefs team because not only is he playing with the ones, he's playing with the ones as a fullback, as a true running back, getting true pass pro reps, getting true routes out there, getting true run as a halfback. He is doing literally everything that they could ever ask him to do in the backfield, and he is doing it well. I thought this was a guy that was going to be competing for RB3 or RB4. At this point, after seeing the way that he has taken the reins and run with the ball and everything like that, I think he's RB2. I think he might have displaced Clyde Edwards-Helaire as running back 2 just because the versatility, the commitment to doing every little thing for this football team matters. And, oh, yeah, he also kind of solves your short yardage woes because he's able to run through dudes in between the tackles as well.
He can take that little open-ended, I don't know what they call it, a little fullback dive, reverse instep that they do. They run the damn play all the time. I saw it during training camp the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I know they have the counter because they ran it back in 2014 versus Buffalo. I talked about it on social. I talk about it every time I see that play. That eventually they're going to fake it and they're going to pitch to the outside like we saw the touchdown with Jamal. But, yeah, he can run that play. It's the only short yardage play they run. But, yeah, for me, and I'm curious your take, and that's why I love talking with you after games because I watch the ball like everybody else, and you pay attention. You pay attention to like what's actually happening and where guys are lined up. So the thing that stood out to me, and there were a couple reps in pass pro that he'll want back that weren't technically perfect, and you look at the PFF grades, they were awful for him in pass protection. Talking about Carson Steele, but the 2 plays, the deep throw to Justin Ross, where Justin Ross was just out of bounds. You go back and watch it. It does not look technically the way that anybody's going to want to teach that. But he stuck his nose in there to a safety who's coming down. He stopped him, slowed him down enough for the pass to be completed. Now, he was off balance. He kind of got thrown back. But he kind of tossed caution to the wind. Craig, you know what I'm talking about. He just kind of threw his body into the way, got pushed back, but stuck his nose in there. And then on the touchdown to Xavier Worthy, he made a great. Now, it wasn't as much of a contact, but he got to the line of scrimmage and went and forced the running back or the safety, 25, whoever that was, coming up. He made him stop. So he knew where to go. He wasn't afraid to stick his nose in there. It's not going to be perfect for UDFA taking on NFL players for the first time, but you saw the willingness and you saw the want to in order to do something. And for any young running back, that's the only thing for me is, does he know where to go in pass pro? And is he willing to stick his body in there so Mahomes can get around it a little bit? We've seen Mahomes be pretty good at maneuvering through that.
Absolutely. Had a good one helping out, I believe, Lucas Niang. I believe it was a Lucas Niang, a chip on the outside. Again, didn't get a full slab of ribs or anything like that on the outside, but enough. And that is what matters. If you stop the feet of the blitzer, that's enough for Patrick Mahomes. If he's holding on to the ball for 5 seconds because everybody's covered, but you stop somebody and then you gave up a sack after 4 seconds, I'm not mad at a running back in that scenario. He did his job. That's what it is. And it's that level of commitment. Too often we see young guys that are just trying not to screw up, that when you see them take on those blitzes, when you see them take on those blocks, they stop their feet. They sort of wait for the blitzer to come to them, and then they whiff. They end up reaching or something like that. It's not that. He meets them headlong. It's the way he plays football. It just is. And the way that he pass protects as well. So that was really, really good to see. Not that he's going to be specialized third down back, especially with the way that Isaiah Pacheco is blocking right now. It's been absolutely terrific from Pacheco as well, but he does it enough to where that you can put him on the field and, hey, he's not a slouch. We can count on him. He's not going to whiff on every single blitzer that's coming. He does just enough.
Yeah, and I talked about it. I love the Chiefs running back. It's one of my favorite position groups to kind of focus on right now, because of all the different guys that they have. And it's not just Carson Steele. It's not just Isaiah Pacheco. And we come back from this break, we're going to talk about the other guy that I thought was very impressive last night at the running back position for the Chiefs. But first, we got to pay some bills.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
When you discover a new binge-worthy show or a song that you bump on repeat and you have to share it with your friends so they can experience just how awesome it is, that's kind of what it feels like when you discover Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's such an awesome deal, there's no way you can keep it to yourself. Friends don't let friends overpay for wireless. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plan and switch to Mint Mobile. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSN10. That's mintmobile.com/KCSN10. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSN10. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
All right, welcome back to 10 Things here on KCSN. I'm BJ Kissel, hanging out with my guy, Mr. Craig Stout. We just got done talking about Isaiah Pacheco and Carson Steele and what the Chiefs have gotten from their guy that we know what we have with Isaiah Pacheco and the new fun dude that everybody loves to talk about right now. But Craig, the guy that's been around for the last couple of years, who has been physically the most impressive player that kind of surprised me in this preseason, has been Deneric Prince. He has got some juice for his size. And watching the game last night, I thought something happens to Pacheco, or if that dude has to get in there and play, it's not just that he could execute it. He's got something that could actually add to this offense and help the Chiefs win a football game at some point.
It's been a little while since the Chiefs have had like true juice in the backfield. That's not a slight against Isaiah Pacheco or anything like that. I love the way that he runs, but it's that level of speed. We all remember kind of what it was like to watch Damian Williams run the football, where maybe it wasn't always big plays. It was, hey, 1.5 yards a carry through 3 quarters, and now all of a sudden he breaks a 90-yard touchdown, and guess what? Everything's great. They haven't had true juice in the backfield for quite some time now, and here comes Deneric Prince. Terrific play. yesterday. Absolutely terrific play. Had a monster run that he was able to hit the hole, showcase that speed, and run. That's what we saw in camp last year. That's why he had so much hype last year. And then we hit the preseason, and it didn't really formulate. It wasn't there on the field in the same way. It was really good to see that he still had that he could put that on the field, because now all of a sudden, I just got done saying Carson Steele is probably running back 2 in my mind. I don't know that they're keeping 4 guys. And you've got good vibes with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Doesn't save you very much money by cutting him, any of that sort of stuff. Or you've got now the juice for Deneric Prince. This was a very important game. I believe Nate Taylor said it on 5 Things this week. Very important game for Deneric Prince because it had to show up on the field. If it didn't, well then, you just kind of say, okay, practice squad guy, you're just going to be a practice squad guy for us. He showed up on the field this week. So now that decision gets harder. Now all of a sudden the question becomes, what really do you want out of that room? Do you need to keep 4 guys? Do you want to just roll with the third? Because he just brings such a different element than Isaiah Pacheco, Carson Steele, Clyde Edwards-Helaire do to the table. Having that level of speed and that ability to kind of one cut and go matters so much in an offense that's going to see so many light boxes this year.
I would keep 4. I don't know if I would mess with that position just because those guys are going to get banged
game,
up.
Man.
Yeah. And one of the guys that could be the determining factor, and this is where it gets really interesting because you're not comparing position versus position. Talk about those last few roster spots, and one of probably the most polarizing players in Chiefs Kingdom this year. He's the big name last year everybody's talking about, and this year it's LRZ, which we'll get to him in a little bit because I'm going to have the same take that I do on Justin Ross right here. But I need, and this is hard because I don't want to sound like a hater, not in awe of the physical talent that he has, but Justin Ross needs to be more than a jump ball receiver to earn a spot on this Chiefs roster. And they can throw him all the jump balls down the way and he can make this some crazy one-handed highlight catch, whatever it is. And I'm not going to say that's the reason he's going to make the team because he's been doing that since college. We've seen him make those plays. I want to see him make some of those stop versus the zone plays that we see from Rashee Rice. That's the player I'm going to be like, holy cow, this is what we needed to see, not some highlight catch down the right. Yeah, like we need to see the basic stuff, not just the physical, I'm going to go down and moss you because we know he can do that. That's not enough to warrant a 53-man roster position on this Chiefs team right now.
Yeah, it's not. It's not at this point. And so, you counteract the Deneric Prince with this is a legitimate element that you can add to the wide receiver, or not the wide receiver, the running back room at this point. Deneric Prince is going to play a little bit of special teams. Justin Ross is going to play a little bit of special teams, but largely is just that jump ball guy at this point. There were a couple plays that the blocking left a lot to be desired on the outside. He just couldn't seal off the edge. And one of the reasons that we're all sitting there with Justin Ross and going, hey, this is why he should make the roster is that physical ability, that ability to line up on the line of scrimmage and body the corner across from you. And if you're not doing that in the blocking game and you're only doing that in contested catch situations, this offense isn't really built for a ton of that at this point. So it does. It comes down, I think, to those 2 guys. How much are you going to get out of Deneric Prince? If you have to keep 4 guys, obviously CEH is a vibes guy. I'm completely on board with keeping a vibes guy, to be fair.
And for the record, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I don't care if he doesn't have a ton of juice. He knows where he's going. They all trust him. He's a great locker room guy. Doesn't financially do anything for you to let him go. So it makes absolutely no sense for him not to be on the team.
Absolutely. And if that's the decision that you have to make there, you need your big physical wide receiver to be big, physical, and win in multiple different ways, and not just, hey, he's on the boundary, let's throw him the ball and hope he comes down with it, because he does that. Don't get me wrong, but that's not something that's been in the Chiefs offense as of late. It's not something that, especially with Patrick Mahomes, that he loves to throw all the time. So if it's a player that's not going to be used in the same way, I would rather then keep the 4th running back in that scenario.
Yeah, you get 46 active guys on game day. I could see Deneric Prince being the inactive guy on game day where you just kind of hide him. You're like, I don't trust that somebody's going to snatch him. You're going to need at least a fourth running back at some point during the regular season, I'd rather have the guy or 3 or 4 guys who have been in that room for a long time. And maybe that's Carson Steele. Like maybe he becomes that guy that's inactive on game days, but has shown too much for them to not have to try and stash him on the practice squad. But again, the better Brett Veach is at his job throughout the entire year, the more difficult it is at this point. They're going to end up cutting people that end up going having success on other teams. It's just part of having a good roster. I do want to flip to the other side of the ball and get your thoughts on this. What I texted you earlier because I was going through some of the PFF scores, and I'll kind of run through those at the end of the deal. Because sometimes I trust them and it's a tool to look at, and then sometimes I'm like my eyes don't see what they did. But curious for you because you get to that second group. It was the middle of the second defense with that linebacker group that it just felt like there was a lot of open space. There were a lot of holes. Not going to pretend that I wasn't just watching the ball, but I know you pay attention. What's going on with the backup linebacker situation? Where do you think things kind of stand after the second preseason game?
I mean, I think Jack Cochran is a lock for this roster right now. I really do think that he's a lock for this roster. I really like the elements that I see from him. I'm going to say a name that a whole bunch of Chiefs fans are going to immediately freak out when I say this, but he reminds me of Ben Neiman. He knows where he needs to go. He may not be able to get there. Now, he's not going to be your dime linebacker like Ben Neiman was. That's definitely not going to be the case. They have 3 other guys that they would much rather give that role to rather than a Jack Cochran. So you don't have to worry about seeing him all the time. He is going to be a guy that on special teams is going to be exactly where you need to be, and he's going to be able to step in and fill in at that Mike linebacker position if Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill go down. It's not just a like-for-like backup in that scenario. Now, that being said, BJ, when was the last time you remember a linebacker being good in the preseason with the first or second team? I remember some third and fourth string linebackers that showed up, but by and large, go ahead. Yeah.
No, just because most of the time when a guy makes a great play, I immediately he's unblocked. Like he should make that play. It's like the sack that Cole Christensen made last week. It's like, oh, great play. I'm like, he literally ran up the A gap and no one touched him. Like he should make that tackle. Like that is not a phenomenal play. And I love Curtis Jacobs. We interviewed him at the Shrine Bowl. He made a play like that where he didn't hesitate. Like you love to see the burst, the downhill, all those things. Stands out, makes a great play. But and speaking of which, Curtis Jacobs was the highest ranked player on the Chiefs defense on PFF grades.
I know. Yeah.
And then the rest of the linebackers, the other end. Way down at the bottom. But they're going to grade that play high, and he beat the block, but
Swayze Bozeman also had some flashes. But again, you're talking about third and fourth string. Like at that point in the game, nobody's really it's very basic conceptually and things like that. There's not a game plan. Chiefs aren't walking in on defense. Steve Spagnuolo didn't spend all week going, okay, here's the things I need my linebackers to look for. You guys are my highest IQ players. You're the ones that are organizing everybody. You know what he's probably doing? Let's get everything together in the passing game. We don't want to allow explosive plays. It's fine if we allow a little bit on the against the run and things like that. And so there's not a game plan architected to put these guys in the right spot. We remember last year, Nick Bolton would play 2 or 3 series. They'd pull him off the field for a series. And everybody at that point is kicking and screaming and yelling. Nick Bolton's getting beat up and down the field. He is the sole reason why this game is close. Drive 4, he comes back into the game. And now all of a sudden they're allowing less than 3/4 of a point per drive every single game that they did this in. These guys are smart. They come in with a basic game plan. They see how teams are attacking them, and they adjust on the fly. They're not doing that at all in the preseason. They're just go run, play fast, make mistakes. We'll figure this out later. We understand. So I understand why PFF is rating them low. I'm not saying that they were great by any means. Drew Tranquill didn't look awesome at times. He got beat on, easily in game 1 on an angle route that he was just way out leveraged. There's lots of stuff like that. I am saying those sorts of things change the most drastically for that second level of the defense once you get into the regular season. And so I am not worried about it at this point. I think they're going to be just fine. but I think that's why you don't see guys stand out quite as much in the preseason.
Speaking of getting beat on angle routes, talk about Jaden Hicks. No, just kidding. I love Jaden Hicks. Him and Shamari Connor. I wrote number 7, the young fun safeties. Craig, you've known me long enough. If you are a downhill safety that likes to come up and hit somebody in the draft, I'm going to want to draft you. I love players like this. Watching Jaden Hicks and Shamari Connor, in 2 years, they are going to be fan favorites for this defense because of the way they play, the way they fly around. They are not hesitant on anything, to your point of what you just talked about. I don't see any of that. I see the beginning stages of players that are going to trust their eyes, get downhill, and make some game-changing type plays. I am very bullish on this young Chiefs secondary with Shamari Connor and Jaden Hicks. What stood out to you watching those guys?
I thought that Connor had maybe a better preseason week 1 than preseason week 2, but
Yep.
I also thought Hicks had a better week 2 than week 1. Yeah, he made some mistakes. There in the second half, especially, there were 3 or 4 plays in a row, pass plays in a row that he tried to press and missed. But
he was late. He was late coming over on one of them where the
Correct.
tight end came on the little dig and the quarterback missed it. It was a pretty bad play. He was lost on the play. I also think he was tired. I think he was tired. I don't know how many snaps, but like he looked tired towards the end because then even on the angle route, he just kind of was like, there he goes.
Yeah. See you later, buddy. But he also made a ton of plays. Like, he is also flying downhill. He is filling the alley. And when I do these defensive film breakdowns and I talk to, Mike DeVito, Derek Johnson, where they talk about, our focus is so in between the tackle and trying to, contain, corral. And if we can't, it's spill, and you hope that a secondary member is there to fill the gap. Jaden Hicks fits that role to a T. Reminds me of the way that Justin Reed likes to play, flying downhill. Shamari Connor flying downhill. We've seen L'Jarius Sneed in previous season fly downhill. It's just another piece for Dave Merritt to look at and say, I've got a high IQ player that wants to hit. Guess what? I know exactly what I can do with this. I know exactly the way to weaponize this guy to make sure that nothing happens underneath. The Chiefs are going to do a good job of keeping everything in front of them. They have over the past several years, not allowing explosive plays. But it's been that dink and dunk stuff underneath at times that we've seen sustain drives. A guy like Jaden Hicks, you just throw him in there. Again, he's playing a lot of snaps because of injuries. You throw him in there, and now all of a sudden, those 6-yard plays turn into 3-yard plays, turn into, hey, the defensive line knows it's a pass on third down. Now they get to tee off. It is a ripple effect that you get to have by having guys like this, Shamari Connor, Jaden Hicks, that can just step up and bring the pain every time they want to get out wide into the flats.
I love watching it. It's so much fun to watch.
I know you do. It's like your favorite thing.
It is my favorite thing. Watching safeties come down and just take out the little guys, just where like, this is not going to be a comfortable end to this play. You can take your 12 yards, but he's going to come in and you're going to feel it. And eventually, at the end of the first quarter, those little receivers, those guys coming across, they don't like getting hit. Come in, let them know you're there. Give them a little something. Just give them a little extra. Love to see that. Now, when we come back from this break, we're going to get Craig's thoughts on FAU, and I'm going to talk about punter.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
All right, we're in the home stretch. Thanks for hanging out at 10 Things here. BJ Kissel with Craig Stout. Craig, kind of teased it. It's not really on the thing here right now, but did see a few comments from the live chat asking about FAU. This player, you guys have had takes. And for anybody that's followed us at KCSN, and behind the scenes, they have never known that I've been the guy to say, do not pat yourself on the back for prognosticating a negative about the team that we're all rooting for. It's never a good thing. It's not a good look. The issues that FAU has right now that everybody's breaking down are quite literally the exact same thing that you guys talked about on draft night when he was drafted. This is not a surprise.
It's tough. It's really tough because he's got a trump card. He has elite traits. And I maintained all along and, said throughout the course of last year when he was inactive at times, it's like, hey, listen, this was always a future pick. Said it in a moment. It's like, he's got a lot of work to do. But He's got a trump card. He's got an elite trait that he can just has such great burst and great bend. He can turn the corner on top-notch left and right tackles. That was my expectation. We are now seeing him go against second, third string tackles that are not getting out of their stances, are not dropping deep enough, and he's still not turning the corner as regularly as you would expect a guy with that sort of elite trait to it. We know that he's not going to defend the run particularly well. That's not the body type he has, and that's fine. I'm absolutely fine with that. I have a path for him. I have a spot for him in the NASCAR package that can turn into a very impactful player. The name D Ford should be very familiar with Chiefs fans. Give me a guy that's just there to rush the passer. I'm fine with having that sort of specialized talent on the roster. It's just not showing up yet. It's just really not showing up yet. He's got a lot of technique work that he needs. He's got a lot of balance work that he needs. You still see that first step and that bend. It's there. There are glimpses of it. It just doesn't get put together. And when you've got a coach that is as good as the one that they have, the defensive line coach and Joe Cullen, that is that good, and everybody else has this rocket strapped to them and they are getting so much better, and one guy is not, it just really sticks out because we all want FAU to succeed. It doesn't matter what your pre-draft thoughts were, what my pre-draft thoughts were, it does not matter. I want that guy to be a 20-sack team or 20-sack guy for my football team. That's what I want for that guy. I don't see it at this stage in his career. And frankly, I'm a little bit worried that there are guys that are currently playing behind him that are going, not Malik Herring. Malik Herring is ahead of him, but guys like Truman Jones that I look at and I go, I might trust Truman Jones out there a little bit more, even after I just got done saying he's got this elite trump trait that should project to the NFL.
Because the way that you're describing, and for me, I get past the when they were drafted. Same thing with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like once they're drafted, it doesn't matter when they were drafted. It's how can you utilize the talent that you have to fit into packages for you. If you end up having a NASCAR package with a former first-round pick, you may say that's a luxury the Chiefs shouldn't have taken as revisionist history going back to the reason to defend the draft pick in the first place. But taking the talent you have and utilizing them to the best of their ability. If FAU becomes a guy that is used in that NASCAR package that gets 10 to 15 snaps per game in third and long or obvious passing situations, sure, looking back at the value of the first-round pick, does it match? No. But can it help you win a Super Bowl? Can he go out there and make 3 big-time plays in those moments that end up being the reason why you go win, which is the whole freaking reason in the first place, is to go win those games and to amass that talent. Now, Malik Herring's development has actually made things a lot easier on Brett Veach. Yeah. Mike Dana re-signing at the contract that he signed makes things a whole hell of a lot easier. And then George Karlaftis developing into a player. We saw him make a sack in that game where it was like, hey, great. The Lions are going to know, hey, we can't block him with a tight end.
Correct. Correct.
All that was not a phenomenal play. It was, he's good enough that you can't do that and he's going to hurt you. That's all you need from George Karlaftis right now.
And that's exactly what I want to see from FAU. Like, that's the level that I want to see from that. Hey, tight ends on George Karlaftis. George Karlaftis takes that as an affront to himself. Nope. You are not blocking me with a tight end. What's wrong with you? I'm better than this. And he proved it. That's what I want to see from FAU. And now the path was clear for FAU because of the Charles Omenihu injury. I can't imagine what the conversation would be right now if Charles Omenihu was healthy. Like and Mike Dana had re-signed, because now I think it would be pretty clear that FAU would be defensive end 5. That's not saying that he's not on the roster, but are we talking about another season where he's inactive again? Are we going to get to the playoffs with a healthy Charles Omenihu on this current roster? Are we going to see that now all of a sudden FAU is inactive? I have more questions than answers right now. And he needed to put some answers on the field this preseason to give this coaching staff, a warm fuzzy about what it is. And yet coaching staff standing up there, giving all these pressers, and the answers are not comforting, to say the least.
Yeah. Now we want to see, but to your point, there is a path to him getting on the field and utilizing what he does very well. And that is a reason enough that, again, we saw him make a play. Was it the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
It's a championship game. Like, step up, make a play. He's going to figure out a way to be on the field. It's just, can he figure out a reason to, or a way to find success, which is where a lot of fans, and I've heard coaches talk about this before, a lot of fans and draft analysts will talk about what things a player can't do, and he's a liability in certain ways, where Steve Spagnuolo will say he is very good at this, and I can put him in a position where he doesn't have to worry about things he doesn't do well. I'll put him in a position to do things he does well, like NASCAR package. Pin your ears back, get after the quarterback. One of the other guys that I wanted to talk about and teased it going into the break, and it's funny, we can sit here and talk about the battle for the backup linebacker spot. We can talk about the fifth defensive end, and I want to talk about the punter, because at the end of the day, that punter is going to have more of a say in what the Chiefs look like this season than the fifth defensive end does. Not that we've spent a ton of time talking about Matt Ariza. I didn't know a lot about him other than off the field stuff that everybody's going to have takes on that, but like, he went through some stuff that's all I knew about him. Didn't know a whole lot about him as a punter other than to call him punt god. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I got it. Yesterday, I was like, all right, that's pretty good. I get it. 56 yards in the air with the hang time that he did outside the hash. Like, then he drops it. And for all of Tommy Townsend could punt the hell out of a football. Tommy Townsend could not drop a punt in to where it died the way that Ariza did. In a way, like, it was not Tommy's specialty to do that. So watching Ariza, it was just one of those games like, all right, I get it. Like, we're good. Punter's fixed. Punter's figured out. We don't have to worry about that guy.
I mean, I legitimately thought it would be a competition because, once again, doing all this draft analyst stuff, I do kickers and punters. I gave him a very high grade a couple of years ago, but did it with the caveat of he's not necessarily going to be the first punter off the board because of the placement ability. It was always the accurate because he just wants to, kick the piss out of the ball. Like, that's what it is, like, at all times. Like, God forbid this team has to play in the Jerry Dome. He's going to hit the screen 18 times.
This is a challenge.
I mean, yeah, exactly. So, it's one of those, it was always the leg. And so to see it is awesome because, it's still there. I was more enthused by the fact that he was able not just to hold. That was my biggest question going into this season, but also to get some placement in there. Dave Toub's a very good special teams coach. He knows what he's doing. This is easily the best coaching that Ariza has had in his career, bar none. He hasn't had better than this because he wasn't in the NFL last year. He didn't get to go through this. So this is easily the best coaching he's ever had. And so to see him take those extra steps, it makes all the sense in the world why they turned around and they, basically turned to, what was his name? BYU punter. I can't remember it now at this point. Raquel. Why they turned around to Raquel and went, hey, see you later. We're good. We feel good about it.
You saw the same stuff we just did.
Absolutely.
It's not a surprise for them.
That's what it was. That's what it was. So I get it. I do. I totally get it.
And the good news for everybody supporting KCSN is we've got the best person to break down the hold. So if Dustin Colquitt starts touching on Ariza and holds, we got it figured out. We got a guy who's been doing it for a very long time at a very, very high level. Let's talk about the other specialist, because another thing that I took away, and granted, we've seen Harrison Butker hit a lot of big kicks, but even just watching in the preseason, he's worth every penny. Like, I know you guys broke it down to get into all of it. At this point, where the Chiefs are at as a team right now, give me a kicker who is as automatic as a kicker can be. He may miss a big kick at some point. He's going to miss one. Every kicker is going to miss, but that dude has hit so many big kicks that now it's the point where I'm more surprised if he doesn't make it. And that's coming from somebody that kind of expects negative things to happen kind of all the time. I was pointing out with Butker, like,
especially on
he's going to make that.
We grew up with it. Yeah.
Like, any Chiefs fan over the age of like 35 has my respect. You're a 21-year-old Chiefs fan talking track. Miss me with all that. I have nothing for you.
Yeah,
I got nothing. You haven't earned it.
He's just nails at this point. Like, he is, and this is well-worn territory at this point. I know that it's been discussed a lot since his extension. The Chiefs their season starts in January. Yeah, it matters. Regular season does matter. I'm not saying it doesn't. They play like it matters most of the time. But, this team is going to be in the playoffs every year. They're going to be a perennial Super Bowl contender every single year. Why not have a guy that is clutch, that performs on the biggest stage, that can step in and drill these kicks? Because BJ and I are very well aware tons of regular season kickers that were phenomenal regular season kickers that would get to the playoffs and choke. Like, there's no other way to put it. Choke. Good football teams in Kansas City Chiefs history. There was a 30-plus year gap where they didn't win a playoff game because of kickers. Now, it's not the only reason they lost, but some of those games, it might have been one of the only reasons they lost. So having a guy that you can count on to step in, do the things that he needs to do, make kicks in the highest pressure moments, time and time again, that's worth it. And he shows up again the preseason, the lowest pressure moment that you can possibly have here, and yet he's still out here easily drilling 56-yarders. The thing that I see the most, though, and maybe BJ, maybe it's just, I've been missing football, and so I've just been off this a little bit, but is he putting more height on these kicks? He's not lacking any distance, but it seems like there is a lot more height, a lot more launch angle. It could be the hold, could be what was going on maybe with Noah Gray snapping some of these. Shout out to Noah Gray, by the way, for stepping into that role. But it seems like Butker's got even more height, and obviously that 56-yarder had plenty of distance, so it's not impacting him. I'm just curious if he's made some adjustments this year.
Be a good question to ask him. Maybe just toying around. He's just trying to check the wind at Arrowhead and what happens. It puts a little more air into it, hitting back to the east or the west side. It swirls more when you hit towards the east, whatever that direction is. When you hit towards the bowl with the end zone coming out, that's where the wind will hit and swirl around. So it'll actually be the opposite of what the flags are at the top. And they've been practicing that stuff. Like, they've been talking about that stuff for years at Arrowhead, just kind of understanding it. But yeah, Harrison Butker, it takes a lot for Chiefs fans, especially older Chiefs fans, to just assume something good is going to happen on the special team side. But you look at the Chiefs roster right now, they have 5 people, including Coach Reed. I should say they have 4 people that are among the best 5 to ever do it at their respective position. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Harrison Butker. Chris Jones could very well be a Hall of Famer. Calling him a top 5 defensive tackle of all time is a stretch.
That's tough.
That's tough just because so many more people. And even Butker, you've got Justin Tucker, you've got Vinatieri, you've got those guys that have been doing it. Butker's in that conversation of the best 5 kickers to ever do it, whether it's regular season, average, clutch type kicks, like every metric you look at it, he's right there.
Get back with me on Chris Jones after this season, by the way. He might get there. I mean, again, it's going to be hard to ignore rings after this year if they go back to back to back. It's going to be real hard to ignore that. So
curious to see what Chris's season looks like, because now he didn't have that on his mind. You don't have to worry about that. He can relax and just go play football, which could be a lot of fun to watch. All right, let's get into PFF numbers real quick, and then take any questions that anybody might have that's been hanging out in the chat. Again, we appreciate all you for hanging out. PFF numbers, going to run through them real fast. Once I get done, Craig, tell me the biggest surprise to you after watching it yourself. I'll go offense and defense. Top 4, bottom 4 graded Pro Football Focus Chiefs from the game last night. All right, offensively, the top 4 graded Chiefs players: Cornell Powell, Xavier Worthy, Patrick Mahomes, Trey Smith. Probably not a huge shocker anywhere in there. Bottom 4 offensive players: Ian Book, Cadarius Tony, Sky Moore, and Justin Ross. Not huge surprise there. Top 4 defensive players: Curtis Jacobs, Swayze Bozeman, Keith Taylor, Tershawn Wharton. And Keith Taylor jumped out. He's, again, stuck his nose in there. Bottom 4 defensive players: Jack Cochran, Alex Gubner, Damari Connor, which I don't get, Leo Chanel.
Ones that jump out to me, I feel like Ian Book maybe should have his own category. Like, that was that was a horrendous end of the game sequence for him. Like, listen, nobody was expecting Ian Book to make this roster by any means or anything like that, but wow, yikes. Major yikes there. I'm a little confused how there's not an offensive lineman. One of the second or third string offensive linemen that's in the bottom 4 offensive players. I think that there's still some weaknesses there. CJ Hansen, I thought, once again, looks good. Pulling looks good on the run, but within the confines of the play, pass, regular pass drops and stuff like that, I feel like he's got a lot of work to go. And that's fine. Put a practice squad on that guy and enjoy. You got another year basically to kind of bring him along and go from there. Not saying his career is over by any means there. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, though, Keith Taylor, I liked how he stuck his nose in there, but I felt like he had a very rough patch in the second quarter. Like, there were a number of plays that he was being picked on a little bit, that he was struggling a little bit. So, and maybe this is just, defense as a whole. George Karlaftis played a good game. He wasn't in there very often, but played a good game, made some impactful plays. I don't see why he's not in here and Keith Taylor is in there. Again, we're splitting hairs here, but those would be the two things that I think really jump out to me, that there wasn't an offensive lineman in the bottom 4 for the Chiefs offense, and that George Karlaftis didn't crack the top 4 defensive players.
Yeah, for me, the other notes that I had just from the game film and just kind of my chicken scratch when I was writing down, Malik Herring had some good rushes.
Yes, really good.
Looks good. His development's been awesome to watch. And one of the other players, and I know he hadn't been out there, I don't believe in the preseason. You tell me if I'm wrong, because obviously his health stuff, but BJ Thompson.
No, he has not been out there right now. Yeah.
But the way that you talk about FAU and having kind of that usage could be a way that we talked about BJ Thompson, obviously, before his health stuff. But that's a guy that he'd be competing against for a role like that, even though body type's a little bit different. I'm curious what their body mass score would actually be, because talked about FAU before he went to K-State, was like 4 years ago. He was 195 pounds.
Right.
It's a lean mass.
He put on weight
for his body.
Yeah.
And the other guy that surprised me that just jumped out a couple of times picking up stunts up front was Caliendo. I thought he looked pretty solid up front. I haven't spent a lot of time watching. I'm not going to pretend that I watched every single snap. But when Mahomes being in there on a couple of those plays where he's able to find Xavier Worthy on the corner right on third down, it was a nice job between him and the left tackle kind of splitting off and kind of passing off a stunt, which is what you want to see, and you expect guys at that level to be able to do it. But obviously with Joe Thuney not playing right now, Caliendo out there, kind of highlights somebody who doesn't have quite as much playing time, and thought he did a good job.
Yeah, I thought that Hunter Norzad looked a lot more comfortable at center than he did at guard. Last week was not good at guard. Had some moments at center that I felt like were better. It may just be one of those guys that needs to run point, feels the timing of the play a little bit better from the center position. Again, that's what he was playing at Penn State last year, and I really, really liked his tape there. So, yeah, really, really like that as well. And then shout out to Spags. We're not running shells in the preseason. He's mixing it up a little bit. I know you put this kind of down here, the 3rd and 7.
I was going to ask you. What is this?
Yeah, FAU and Karlaftis dropping with Hicks as a blitzer there. It's like this is vintage Steve Spagnuolo, and we get to see it all the time in the regular season. We love it. We love it until, again, I still have people that blow up my mentions when, especially on that play, what's Spags doing, dropping those guys into coverage? It's like, well, the blitz is supposed to get home before that, you guys. Like, it's supposed to happen.
They do tendency breakers in the preseason because I don't trust anything. They run in the red zone, like all kinds of cover zero in the red zone. Like, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's stuff like that to see, they're still exercising that stuff. And Trim McDuffie wants the blitz too. Like, let him and Jaden Hicks have a couple of turns and know that, well, if it gets picked up, well, we're probably completing something across the middle because we've got 2 defensive ends that are trying to cover space at that point. But, stuff like that occurs. So it's good to see that he's still there. He's still in his bag. He's still trying stuff out. Coverage shells, from what I can tell, definitely shifting. It's not just static stuff. So it's good. And I'm very curious to see when Justin Reed's back in the fold a little bit more, when we get Nick Bolton back in the fold, if this defense has another layer beyond what we saw last year from coverage calls. Not trying to say they're going to be better, but from coverage calls, they're already kind of laying the groundwork for some of that stuff.
Awesome. Those are all the notes that I believe we had. Any other takeaways, Craig? Anything that I didn't have on that sheet that stood out to you from the game yesterday?
Hey, Carson Wentz looks pretty salty. You know what? I like what I see from him. You know, both preseason games that we've seen so far, you know, we went out on a limb with the lab when they signed him and said, you know, this is the best backup quarterback that Patrick Mahomes has had yet. You know, I agree with that sentiment after seeing more of him on the field here. It's competent play. And I know that Carson Wentz is a very polarizing figure, has some ups and downs in his career at this point. But when you sit there and you watch what he's able to do, what he's able to create outside of the pocket, find guys, know where things need to be, the arm talent, it's all there. And so I'm very excited to have him on the roster. I hope that the Chiefs use him exactly once in week 18 of this season. And that's it. I hope that that's it. But it's nice to know that there is a backup quarterback there that you're not going to be just saying, okay, well, we're going to be a run-heavy team now because we don't trust our quarterback to drop back and throw the ball all the time. We know that this offense is still going to try and throw the ball down the field with the Carson Wentz out there.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything bad because Chad Henne stepped up and made some plays when they needed him to play. Same thing with Matt Moore and guys in the past. Like
either one of those guys. They were awesome.
But if you're asking me who's a better player, Chad Henne, Blaine Gabbert, or Carson Wentz is the best player of those three quarterbacks. So absolutely get that completely. And the only other thing, again, I don't care about the results of whether or not they win these football games. Are you seeing the little things that we need to during preseason to feel good about where we are? And I am. The only other take that I have, and this isn't to be a hater, it's because everybody keeps talking about him. And I said behind the scenes in the group text, like, I don't see it. I don't understand this. Is the rugby guy. Like, I don't see it. And I'm trying. You can use him a lot of different ways. I get that he's athletically, you can do different things. With Reese Sammet, I just don't see where you put him on the football field. In a regular season game that matters to try and do something successful, the kickoff stuff, sure, the four-core special team, kind of a fullback type, sure. Offensively, he's not going to do anything to help the Chiefs win a football game right now. He is not laterally athletic enough.
Josh Briscoe said it earlier this week. He looks, when he took his first handoff in the preseason week 1, you know what he looked like? A guy that was taking the first handoff in any game ever in a football game. Like, that's what it was. And that's okay. You shouldn't. The expectation shouldn't be that this guy is just going to walk in and now all of a sudden he's going to be the best running back in the NFL because he played rugby and it's just going to directly translate. There's a lot that is on the plate for a guy like that to try and do. So, it should have always been special teams. Always, 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 always. And it still could be. But offensively,
I'm trying to hold it in. Yeah, I'm trying not to cut you off or lose it. Just because I've built it. It's been building up for like 2 months of it's disrespectful to people who play football. And I understand rugby, the physicality, all that. It's not like the NBA guy saying he can play in the NFL. No, you're not used to the physicality. It's not that that he isn't used to the physicality. It's that football's fucking hard.
Yeah.
And just to expect somebody that's never done it to step in and be like, oh, yeah, he's going to be a dude. No, like, it's not that easy. And to do it would literally be make a freaking movie about him right now. It'd be one of the most crazy stories in the history of the game. I was going to side with it's probably just going to be one of those crazy offseason stories because we all need something to talk about right now. And it's not knocking the guy. Like, hell of an opportunity to get in there and play even this well has been pretty impressive.
There are so many
regular season game. Mahomes is going to be throwing some wheel route to this dude who's going to beat an NFL corner or safety or linebacker to go make a play. Like, this is not that. It's a great story.
He is one of the best rugby players equipped to play in the NFL, period. This is not a slight against him. He is one of the few guys that could make a transition to the NFL in some facet.
Eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's one of those. I think it makes sense for the Chiefs to have exercised him, had him on the roster, given him the storylines, given him all this. All of it makes sense. I don't blame them one bit for this entire experiment at this point. But
this is content creators
yes,
that know that, and I talk about this last time. This content creators knowing that there are 15,000 fans sitting over in England. They're going to watch every YouTube video that talks about this kid. So then every YouTube channel is going to start creating all this content because people are watching it, and it creates this thing that isn't real about these players, and it's not fair to them. They can build their brand around it, and it could be good for them. I get that, but like setting the expectation that he's closer to being ready than he is created by the outside. And then people are surprised, like, I can't believe he didn't make it. Who are you listening to? Who do you trust that can tell you honestly, like, yes, it's a great story. Yes, he could be the best rugby player to ever have a chance. But actually making the Chiefs roster, come on.
Like, I mean, it's a great story. You know what else is a great story? Damar Hamlin converting a fake punt in a playoff game to send the Bills over the Chiefs. It's a great story. Doesn't always work out that way. It's not a Disney movie. It doesn't just, kind of lock in and do all of that. I got one more. I got one more, BJ, if you're ready to move off of LRZ.
Yeah, I don't like being a hater. I feel like I'm defending everyone else who's ever played football before.
Well, maybe I need to back off of this.
Oh, God. Here we go. Who is it?
Kadarius Tony's not making this team, right? At this point, I mean, it's been a week for him where all the storylines have basically pointed to he's not getting on the field. He's not contributing in the ways that they want to. He's not delivering in the ways that we expect a player of this caliber to deliver. And here it is that he lines up, he gets on the field, and the first thing, or one of the first things that we see from him is he commits 2 penalties on the same play. Lines up, covering up the line of scrimmage. He's not off the line of scrimmage, and Jared Wiley was on the line of scrimmage. Again, that's a rookie. Maybe Jared Wiley screwed up, but Kadarius Tony's not a guy they like putting on the line of scrimmage a ton. And when they do, doesn't have a great history of working out for this offense for, actually not getting penalties. And then he holds on the edge when the ball comes his way, just not showering himself in glory, not being one of these guys that looks dynamic anymore, looks like he's playing with confidence. This is kind of what we saw at the end of his New York Giants tenure. He's hurt. The Giants are saying he's hurt. He's saying he's not hurt. He's not playing with confidence. He's not showing what it's out there. Now, all of a sudden, the Chiefs are saying, well, he was hurt at the end of last year. He's saying, no, I'm not. And then he comes into this offseason. They give him another chance. He's not playing with confidence. He's not running with the teams that he needs to be for the investment that they gave up. I'm looking at him now, and it goes back to what you were talking about with Xavier Worthy. They're giving him some of these gadgety reps, but he's also a wide receiver beyond that. I can't say the same about Cadarius Tony at this point. I worry that he's not on this roster. I just don't think he is at this point, and that's a guy that you want. He's electric with the ball in his hands, or at least has been in the past. I don't see it anymore, and if that's gone, what's the point?
It's infuriating for me in the fat, overweight, like middle-aged guy that never had that kind of athletic talent to see somebody like Cadarius Tony that had all of the opportunity in the world to just figure out how to be comfortable with 8 to 10 plays in this offense, and you would have multiple Super Bowls. You would have a role for you. I'm making this number up. 20% of the Chiefs playbook requires a certain skill set that we had with Dexter McCluster, had it with Tyreek Hill, had it with DeAnthony Thomas. Now you're having it with Xavier Worthy and anybody else that can run this. It is the skill set for Kadarius Toney. They put it on a tee and he can't figure out. It reminds me before he became Calvin Herrera. When Calvin Herrera was struggling, you had a pitcher that threw 100 miles an hour, had 4 disgusting pitches, and could not get anyone out. You watch, you're like, how does he not get people out? He throws so fucking hard. He's got a nasty slider, a nasty splitter, all of this, and he can't get anyone out. He's missing spots. He's behind, throws it down the middle, pipes one, and it gets hit out. You are the most athletically gifted player, maybe on this roster, which is saying something with the kind of speed they have.
Oh, my goodness.
I've never blamed Brett Veach for keeping Cadarius Tony, because you go watch that guy in practice and talking to people who've been there, he's different athletically than anyone else you have. And their job is to put together the most talented team. You can't watch that dude in shorts and all of that and not be like, we've got to figure out a way to make this work. And now we're sitting here begging for a reason to try and have him prove that he should stay. And all he has to do is know where to be and get there quickly.
Yeah. And there's countless guys, there's countless stories in the NFL of guys like that for one reason or another, they just don't work out, whether it's injury, whether it's confidence, whether it's a scheme, whether it's something like that. It just doesn't translate. And
they don't care about the game. Maybe he doesn't like playing football.
Could be it too.
He likes that he's good at football. He doesn't like the game of football. And that's the question I always asked players, and I'd ask Veach or Dorsey or whatever. It was, how do you tell the difference between a guy who loves that he's really good at football and everything it brings to him in college and a guy that actually loves the sport? And they all say the same thing. What's that guy doing at Tuesday at 8 o'clock in the middle of August? 8 o'clock at night after practice, what's he doing to make himself a better football player? And you figure out what the guy's doing then, it'll probably tell you what he's going to be doing in 5 years on Sundays.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it is. And it sucks because, I'm with you. Like, you see the glimmers, you see the glimpses, and you're just like, man, I get why you take a swing. I completely understand why you take a swing. But at this point, sunk cost. Like, don't keep making the same mistake at this point. Yeah. Give another guy the opportunity. Give another guy the reps. Give a Nico Remigio or Justin Ross those reps if you must. Insert any name here. I'm on board. Give another guy the shot, because at this point, you can't count on him to line up right. You can't count on him to catch the ball. You can't count on him to not make a mistake on the play. Even if you do get a good play from him, how many bad plays are going to overshadow it? And that's just kind of where you are with him right now. And it sucks because it is a player that could truly be special on the field if it all got put together, and it just never did.
Yeah, can't imagine how frustrating it is for the scouts. The people who are there just trying to teach
it's like, we were right. What's wrong? We were right.
Yeah, just because you're right doesn't mean it's still going to work out the way you expect. But this has been the longest episode of 10 Things in the history of 10 Things.
Of course it is. I'm here. It's you and me talking football. Of course it was going to be a long one.
I'll sit here and I just want to hang out with you. Like, we can just keep it rolling. Everybody who's here. But man, it was good to see you. Hope you're well. The fam is doing well. Yep. And we appreciate everybody for hanging out, watching this live, or whether you're listening to the podcast version. This thing's going to post tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. on all our podcast channels. If you do want to go back, or you're listening to the podcast and you appreciate this, we'd appreciate a review. People do read those, helps us reach more fans as we are approaching our goal. Craig, I haven't told anybody this, so you get a little information here. Hour and a half in. We are on pace to hit 10 million downloads before the end of this season in the history of KCSN, which is fucking bananas to think about. When we started, we crossed 8 million already. We will be approaching the 10 million download mark in around the playoffs.
That's a lot. That's a lot, man.
Because you're really good at what you do. That's why.
No. It's because you're really good at what you do, Mr. BJ.
I don't even know what I do at this point. We're figuring out. We're building this plane in the air. But I can tell you that the KCSN Foundation stuff is what I spend most of my time doing now. As Tucker has been phenomenal for the growth of this organization. We give that kid a hard time, but man, we wouldn't be where we are right now if Tucker, Nick, Joel, the whole crew behind the scenes isn't awesome at what they do. So the reason I say it is because I know how important all of those things are to making this thing work. And none of it matters if we don't have people supporting what we're doing, listening, and consuming our content, whether you're reading it, watching it, listening to it, all the different places we put it out. We appreciate you more than you could possibly know, allowing us to do what we love to do and have you guys join us in the process. So thank you so much. Love you, man. We're going to talk soon. Love you all out there. Have a great week. Enjoy it. Enjoy getting ready for all your fantasy football drafts. The game on Thursday, I know those are all coming up. And then we'll have more things to announce here on KCSN. A few more things getting ready for that season as we tweak the plan. A couple more voices that are going to join us for this season that we haven't announced yet. Should be pretty cool. But appreciate all you for hanging out. We'll see y'all next time. Craig, you take us home.
Yes. I love closing this out because I get to say some of my favorite things. We love you. We thank you for listening. Give us a 5-star review, like, share, tell your friends. We are going into this season. The best Chiefs content is going to be right here, and that's not to slight anybody else. You are very fortunate to be in a Chiefs space that is so packed full of good content. We're going to keep you at the very tippy top here. So be kind to each other, and we will catch you later.